Welcome to Three Thoughts On. Thank you for being here. Those of you who are online, thank you. And everyone that's here live, as always, we're very grateful for your presence here. Today I have a special guest, my friend Poonacha Machaiah. Poonacha, how are you doing today?
Wonderful to be here, Raphael. It feels like we have shared a lot of stories together, and it's good to be back here in Lake Nona. I think I'm sitting down over here, and as we sit across, I want to thank Juan, who's been like the bastion of kind of always running events here, and good to see Reese again here. I think it feels good to come back home. I think I was almost here for 10 years ago, then 6 years ago, and now once again back in Lake Nona, so it feels good to be back.
Yeah, no, it's good to have you back. We have our stories. You know that when we met here about 5 years ago.
You're my guitar teacher. How can I forget? The most amazing guitar teacher on the planet.
And if he only practiced. If only he practiced. No, thank you for being here. I know you're busy these days. Your professional life has changed quite a bit over the past few years. Can you give us a little bit of background on who you are and how do you end up doing what you're doing today?
The who am I question is very complicated because that is still work in progress. But I think professionally, I would say I started off my career as a technologist, very much in telecom, Nortel, Motorola. But over the last 2 decades, I think I've been very much focused around what I call social entrepreneurship. How do we use tech for good? And that started my relationship with Dr. Deepak Chopra over the years. And I think over the last decade, as the CEO of the Chopra Foundation, and really looking at how do you look at well-being. I think the vision of the Chopra Foundation and with Deepak has been how do we reach a critical mass for a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. I think there's a lot of work to be done here, right? We're definitely struggling with peace, definitely struggling with joy, and a healthier and happier world. I think the world is in a little bit of a chaos right now. So I think, the work, the Chopra Foundation, and my work has been a lot around mental health. I think if you think about it, every 40 seconds we lose someone to suicide globally. The silent pandemic is mental health. The most powerful country in the world, the United States, every 12 minutes we have a suicide. Every day we have 22 veterans who die by suicide. It's almost like we become almost numb when I say these stats. And the second leading cause of death among young adults in this country is death by suicide. What are we doing, right? So for me, as a father of 2 boys, 24 and 20, I think for me mental health has really been one of my biggest passion areas. And so that's something which I've looked at. And if you think about it, the reason I work with AI and technology is because there's just not enough therapists around. If every 40 seconds, think about it today, having a therapist is a luxury, right? People who need therapy don't have the money to pay for a therapist. So I think we have to look at different ways. And I think, so that's one part of my world, which is how do you prevent disease? How do you look at mental health? And that's the Chopra Foundation. The second part of my work is, as a technologist, I have a company called Cyber Human AI, which is looking at how do you create technology for good? How do you create conscious AI? How do you use tech to really democratize access to health and wellness? And once again, a company I co-founded with Dr. Deepak Chopra. We deployed Deepak Chopra at AI. But my goal is to really look at what I call life event ontology. Nobody got diabetes by eating a pizza last night. Right? The body keeps score. And, so if you can look at home, at work, on the road, at play, what we call life event, and an ontology of what happened, that's how disease happens. And that's when chronic low-grade inflammation creeps up. So that's the second part of my world is how do you use AI to really bring access to the best health and tech to people who need it the most, right? Not just the United States, or Africa, India, all parts of the world. So those are the 2 parts. And the third thing which I'm really focused in Lake Nona as my pilot project is peak living. And I think it was very interesting because listening to Ricardo and Howard talk about it, the number one challenge in the world in the age of AI is going to be intimacy, connection, right? We're super connected but very lonely. I think how do we create social connection? I think intimacy is going to be that real currency in the future. And so that's something I want to double down. What is the operating system? What is the fabric of a society which is intimate. And what we are trying to create is this thing what we call love in action. Love without action is meaningless, and action without love is irrelevant. But love in action can change the world. So one of the things we want to build into the operating system of a community or anything is what I call the 4 A's, right? The first A is attention, deep listening. Today people have lost the art of listening, right? And everybody's on their phone. The second A is appreciation. When you have attention, there's appreciation. If you think about relationships today, there's no attention. There's obviously then no appreciation. People don't even know what their partner wore to work that day or whatever. So third A is affection, love, kindness, tenderness, compassion. And I always joke, if I have to build an app, it's going to be the opposite of tender. Of Tinder, it's called tender, right? Because tenderness is a virtue. Today everything is fast, fast, fast. And the last A is acceptance, radical acceptance. It is hard to change yourself. It is impossible to change anybody. So radical acceptance. So that's the reason why I'm really interested in working in small communities. Because when I came to the United States in 1992, I used to hang out at the YMCA, right? I used to hang at those social clubs. Where is that today? So peak living to me is that initiative I'm starting here, which is, I called it peak living versus peak performance, right? And why is that? Performance is about output, is about goals. Living is about alignment, vitality, joy, right? So the world is obsessed today with living longer, like, Brian Johnson's and all of that is great. So it's not about how about reverse aging, right? At 55, I've loved being 55. At 35, I was kind of clueless, I think, right? So what
You and me both.
we want, so what I think we believe is peak living is about the wisdom of age and the vitality of youth, right? You want the biology, but you want the wisdom of age. So I think we want to redefine what is longevity, what is health span. It's not so much about measuring biomarkers and all of that. The number one predictor of longevity, health span is joy. How joyful are you? What is your purpose? And I think that's really, what I love about what you do, and I think why I'm doubling down on Lake Nona. For God's sake, I got the street name called Chopra Terrace.
Yeah.
Right? So we kind of literally committed to Lake Nona. So I think that's kind of the nutshell. I think my journey from technology to social entrepreneurship to now to really being of service. That's a nutshell.
So there's a lot there that I want to dive into, but yes, for those people who don't know, when we met, we realized pretty quickly that our journeys were very similar, because we were both in telecom at the same time, probably met in some meeting room and don't even remember, because we were in the same cities and the same projects at the same time, and we both found the need to do something a bit more meaningful, right? So before we dive into the details of some of these things you mentioned, the AI stuff, the cyberhuman, you mentioned peak living. I want to throw something at you. I was just listening to a podcast a few days ago, and I want to just share with you a little piece of what I heard, and I want to see what your thoughts are on that. Right? And I was listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I follow. I like a lot of his work, and he gave the following statistics. He said that as far as we know, from the time we were in the caves as a human species to the 19th century, the middle of the 19th century, the average age was the average age of dying was around 30 years old, right? So somewhere around 30, people were dying. Okay, so that's cavemen all the way to the 18th century. From the 18th century to the 19th century, it was 35. So you have all this time, and the point of him was saying that back then, guess what? Everybody was organic. Everybody was eating from the ground. Everybody was eating all the good stuff from the land, right? Society was less stressful because, you were living in the fields and so forth. But the longevity, people were just dying in their 30s.
Right.
And then today, that number is far greater, right? And what he's saying, his point is that the reason we've gone from 30 to 35 to now 60, 65, 70, 80, 90 is because of medicine, right? Science specifically. We understand the human body better. However, you and I know that most people are unwell. You're talking about all the suicides and all this stuff. So my view is that without the technology and the things that people like you are developing, we're not going to be able to sustain the longevity we've sustained because of the science that we've gotten over the 20th century. The 20th century got us from 30 to 80, right? But if we don't start doing some of the things that you're working on, just this year, I know friends of mine, my age, you're 55, I'm 53. 5 so far this year have passed away. Just didn't wake up, right? And if we don't start taking advantage of some of these solutions that a lot of people are scared of, it's weird technology, AI and all the wearables and all the measurements is different. And some people are still uncomfortable with it. But in my point, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, unless we find a way to use that, we're going to be reversed. We're going to be going the other way. What are your thoughts?
First of all, modern medicine is amazing, right? If I have had 2 knee replacements, ACL surgeries. If I didn't do that, I would not have been able to do what I needed to do. I probably would not have been able to walk. I have my hip replaced, left hip, after a climbing accident. I'm kind of bionic, right? I can do things. I just joined BJJ, Martial Arts Nation. I started coaching there. Why would you not want to leverage and the best health technology? Over the next 10 years, if you don't die of something stupid, you will live a very long time. And I think we are living the best time in human history. The best, right? Because I think today we can understand the genome, the epigenome, the microbiome, the exposome. We pretty much have the 4 omics. We can understand exactly what is Raphael's biology, what are your genetic disposition, what are your lifestyle dispositions, what is your environmental toxins. Why would you not want to use all of this information to live your best life? So today I think, if you look at it, your credit score is almost in real time, right?
Yeah.
If you don't pay a bill, I think you'll get a credit report alert almost in real time. If your credit card increases by a few counts, you'll get a credit alert. How come you don't get your health alert? Why just go to your doctor once a year? And that's not good enough. And you go once a year and the doctor has no idea what's happening to you. Today, I think you can actually take your blood report, upload it into ChatGPT. You'll get a pretty good, or Gemini, you'll get a pretty decent analysis of what's happening with your report, right? And the reason is you have to take health into your own hands, right? The concept of a lifestyle physician or a general practitioner who's there with you all the time, it's not there because your health insurance, you don't have the ability to go see your doctor once a month. So I think technology is going to be the future of healthcare, is what I call the 5 Ps, right? It's very personalized. It is predictable. You need a process. You need a platform. You need to go to participate, right? You should not wait 1 year from now to get your blood report. Then you realize, oh my God, it's already late. Just do it dynamically. And this is why technology, is your best friend. I think I saw the Nestle team here. And there's an interesting ecosystem here, right? From every part of your, when I realized that I have the Alzheimer's gene, it's a predisposition, so you can turn on the switch or turn off the switch. It is a predisposition, right? It's your lifestyle modification. So today I think you do not have to drive without, if you got into your car today and there was no dashboard, you'd freak out, right? You would not get into that car. There's absolutely no dashboard, just start switch and gas. You would not drive the car. Why would you want to take care of your health without a dashboard? Without sensors, I would always say use it, right? That's my take on it.
No, I agree with you. I think we're dealing with with a lot of fear, because obviously technology is just like anything else. You can
And
use it for good.
fear is false evidence appearing real. That's my acronym. False evidence appearing real.
Well,
We get caught in the narrative, right? But once again, I don't think it's about embracing it also.
Yeah, and we have to do a better job in working with people, and that's some of the work that you've been doing. Again with cyberhumans, like yes, this is technology. It's just like a knife.
Right.
A knife can be used, as a tool. It can be used, for good, or it can be used for bad. And we see the resistance, right, to use of technology because of the bad that it could do, but there's also all the positive that it could do as well. So let's zoom in on that for a moment, right? So that's part of what you're doing with Cyberhuman. So can you dive into the model of Cyberhuman?
So in Cyberhuman, there are two lines of businesses. One is really creating digital twins for people in health and wellness domain. So example, we are Dr. Deepak Chopra, right? So we have the Deepak Chopra AI. So the question is, how do you take Deepak's knowledge and make it accessible? So today we go to Deepak Chopra AI and you can ask any question you want. We have used 98 plus books, thousands of hours of videos, and you can ask a question, Deepak, I just flew in from LA to Orlando. I'm struggling with my sleep right now. What do I do? And he can give you his tips on jet lag. He can say, I'm checking into the Wave Hotel. What should I take? He'll say, have this tea or turn down your room temperature, take a warm shower. These are things you can do. So AI can become that well-being assistant in your pocket. So working with some of the leading experts, we're working with Dr. Rudy Tanzi, who's a who wrote Super Brain, Super Gene, one of the leading experts in cognitive decline, understanding how do I improve my cognitive reserve, right? As you get older, it's very important to improve your cognitive reserve. What are my tips? How do I bring novelty into my life? So we want to create AI agents for some of the leading experts in the world in health and wellness. That's one part of the business. The second part of it is creating an AI twin platform where I can go back and you upload your genomic profile or your microbiome or your blood report. It goes back and analyzes and says, Raphael, this is what we would recommend for your lifestyle. So those are the two areas. Like I said, the first part of my vision was how do you make disease optional, right? People should not die of disease. The number one thing, which I think if we can, one metric you can measure as an engineer, I look at what is the one change you can do, is reduce chronic low-grade inflammation, right? Inflamed gut, inflamed brain, inflamed society, right? You eat the wrong food, you have dysbiosis in the gut, serotonin and dopamine production is impacted, the gut-brain axis, the vagus nerve, you're not able to sleep, endocrine system is disrupted, you make bad decisions, right? So it is, once again, just keep one marker. How do I reduce chronic low-grade inflammation? And this is really where I think Dr. Chopra's pillars of well-being come in. So what happens once you get that, our goal is to give you a lifestyle prescription, not a pharmaceutical prescription, which you can always get from your physician, but what are the things you can do to change your lifestyle? And there are 11 principles which you look at lifestyle, right? The first principle is you got to first have your mind-body connection. What is the biostat, right? Chronologically, I'm 55. Biologically, I could be 45 or 65, how I abuse my body. So it's chronological age, biological age, psychological age, and spiritual age, timeless, right? So first of all, set your mindset. The second pillar of well-being is deep rest. I didn't say sleep, deep rest. Because people stress about sleeping. I slept 6 hours last night or 6.5 hours. They look at the Fitbit or the Whoop and they get stressed about sleeping. It's more about, do I get up in the morning, do I feel rested, right? That's a good measure. The third pillar of well-being, nourishment. What are you nourishing your body? The fourth pillar is, what sort of nutritional complements do you, adaptogens, supplement to help yourself with your sleep or whatever you were going through? Fifth is movement, right?
Intentional movement.
It's not even, I didn't say exercise, I said movement. There's a saying in Vedanta which says infinite flexibility is the key to immortality. Flexibility in the body-mind, right? When you become inflexible, you literally become stiff. When you're sitting like this, you become stiff. Children are running around. They're not stiff. They're kind of flexible. So the sixth pillar of well-being is having some kind of mind-body practice. Yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, whatever, pick one, right? Seventh pillar is having love in your life, love and relationships. Eighth pillar is looking at eliminating toxicity, people, substance, and place. Ninth is looking at the skin, youthful aesthetics. 10th is looking at community. 11th is looking at nature. The body is 80% water, we're connected to lunar and circ and the rhythms of the universe. If you actually do these 11 things, you reduce chronic low-grade inflammation. You don't live an inflammatory lifestyle. The body returns to homeostasis. You are disease-free. That's kind of our goal, is to give you control. To say, you know what, Poonacha, you're here in Lake Nona, maybe you should just walk bare feet around somewhere, right? Take a walk, remove your shoes. Because the best way to ground after a flight is to grounding. Because we have rubber-soled shoes, we're disconnected from the universe. Rumi said, God's language is silence, everything else is poor translation. I say God's language is nature and silence, everything else is poor translation. We are designed to be nature, right? We've been cut away from the surroundings, which is this urban jungle we are in with all the EMF and all of that. So the closer we get to nature, the more we will heal. So that's really the goal of cyberhuman and all of that is well-being, at the essence, core of what we do.
So interesting. So how do you go about, well, actually, before I ask the question, again, keep me honest, see if you agree, disagree. Part of what I've observed, living in this country now for, you got here in 92, I got here in 91, is this drive towards individualism, right? Where you see, the communities, it's a community because there's a lot of people that live together, but they don't really do things together. They don't really interact with each other. A lot of communities, people don't know their neighbors, whereas, in the past, not only where we came from, but even right here in the United States, there was a more importance was put into the community itself and working together, and that's one of the things, that you've been trying to do, that I've been trying to do, here in Lake Nona, is to bring people to start doing things together. It's okay to go to Chroma and have a drink, that's fine, but there's got to be more than that, right? There's got to be, the martial arts stuff. There's got to be the stuff that, the walks, the groups, right? And we've lost a lot of that, right? On top of that, technology, as good as it can be, it's very easy to lose yourself in the technology, so now you're even more isolated from the community and what the community is doing. So if I ask you, it's like, well, so let me see, you're gonna give me more technology, right, with the tools that you've been describing, so that I can then connect more with the community, but the technology, as I understand it, right, whether it's like, Tinder or whatever, it's like you're more isolated. So what is the secret sauce to use technology to actually bring people together in a meaningful way?
I think there are two questions you asked. So you said, in this country, why are we kind of rewarding individualism, right? It's just the DNA. That's what makes the United States great, right? People came here, the true inhabitants of this country are not here, right? They've kind of been relegated, the Native Americans. They're almost not there. They're the true inhabitants of this land. Whoever came here, all of us came from somewhere else. We left our countries, we came here as individuals, right? And we made it. And that's what makes America great, right? It's the MVP, the most valuable player. You play a sport, but one person is the MVP. So you're rewarding that, and that's the reason why you can do what you do here, right? If you took that away and you said, what, everybody's going to get a medal or everybody's going to do, that doesn't work, right? So the DNA of what made this country great and what makes this country great is that achieving, right? And that's just the DNA, right? If I come and say it takes a village to bring up a child, where is the village? If in India, when you have a baby, the mother never touches the baby. You know that? They put the baby, after that the mother is there, and the whole community takes the baby. They're carrying the baby, everybody's taking the baby. You don't hear things of postpartum, right? Over here, you have the baby, and I remember when we had our first child, I was 28, my wife was 26, I'm like, what the hell do we do? Like, how does this work? I'm like, what do you do? And our parents were flying in to come in, and you realize that there is no community, right? Because everybody's got to go to work, and rightfully so, right? So I think there is a little bit of an operating system challenge. I think the way we operate is different. The second part of your question was more leaning towards, once again, remind me, I got lost on my first one.
The technology and how to use technology to
So
actually bring
technology,
together.
if you think about it today, that train left the station, right? Kids today, when I tell my son that, I was growing up in India, it was amazing. I should go for my monsoons to my coffee plantation. There was no electricity, and we were there under the lamp, and it was so nice. My grandfathers tell me stories. We should go hunting. They're like, Dad, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, really? Like, why would you do that? Like, why would you not want to be in a place where there's electricity? So I think we romanticize that, and I think today there's digital first, there's mobile first. Now kids are going to grow up in AI first, right? So I think the role we should talk about is how do you put conscious use of technology, right? So I was part of Nortel, the fast optical network. What is the number one traffic on the internet? Pornography. Number one traffic. Great, right? That train left that station. Part of Motorola, the Moto Razr phone, that's part of the company I worked in. What's the number one thing we created in mobile phones? Addiction. Cookie them, keep them, make sure they never lose a phone, keep them ecosystem. And now we have AI. When we applied a software patch in Nortel or Lucent or wherever, it took us probably a year before we did one patch on a switch, 5 nines reliability. In 1 year, 5 companies come and go today. So we are very callous about how we are deploying technology. And I am a big believer on ethical use of technology. I believe every software engineer today needs to take an oath. Right? Because a doctor, a physician takes the oath, a Hippocrates oath, right? That I will use the skills I have in the service of humanity. Today, AI engineers and software engineers and all engineers in general have the same impact. Your line of code can change. The swipe left and the swipe right on Tinder completely destroyed humanity. We took an amazing human being and he just discarded them as swipe left and swipe right. Even though financially it made so much sense, I think Tinder should never have happened. That should never have been funded. Because that took an amazing, complex, beautiful human being and made that into a profile, and which we just became, this movement is so callous, right? So I think when we don't have guardrails, that's what worries me about AI today, right? All of a sudden there's no governance. Right? AI companies are coming out left, right, and center. And we are in this greed race, right? There's a thing which says there's enough in the world for every man's need except for one man's greed. Greed is what's killing the world. And today I think, for me, where I stand from AI, and I came to this country as an AI programmer, right, in 1992. That's how I started my career. I couldn't get a job. That's when I went into telecom. So I think if the question we should ask is that every anybody who touches a piece of code today should take an ethics class. Otherwise you should not roll a software out, right? That's just my take on it.
It's interesting, we used to, at least when I went to school many moons ago, we had to take 2 classes in engineering school. We had to take an ethics class and we had to take a language writing. So we could actually communicate, a communications class, right? So I tend to agree with you on that. Tell me a little bit more. So now we've kind of covered up the landscape of at least what you're doing with Cyberhuman and in Deepak's AI, which I saw at Netflix. It was actually quite interesting. But then also you have this other side now. This not peak performance, peak living. Tell me more about that.
Like I said, peak performance is for athletes. It's all about output. It's all about goals. And when you reach your goal, it doesn't mean you're necessarily happy. I know a lot of people, software engineers or entrepreneurs are always talking about exit strategy. They never ask the question when the final exit strategy happens, when you exit this planet, what happens, right? I think the fundamental question for me, when you look at Eastern wisdom tradition, right, we talk about 4 phases of life. The first 25 is education. The second 25, fame and fortune. Third 25, be of service, give back. The fourth 25, who am I? Transcendence. So I'm at 55, I'm asking the question, how can I be of service to humanity? Because I've stood on the shoulders of giants in my career. And Deepak at 79, 78 is about transcendence, right? So for me, at this phase, it's about giving back. right? And that, I think, is the most important thing. I think today, even the best thing for mental health, be of service. You know, you really create community and be of service. I saw Caitlin there from Conscious Nona. I think it's about not me, it's about we, right? How do we kind of, only together, life is a team sport, right? Performance, once again, peak performance is like we glorify athletes. But you know, we never see their side when they're depressed. We never see the side when they finish their career, what happens. Peak living for me is just a way of life, right? It is living in alignment, living with vitality, living with joy, right? Because joy is the only measure of success. Like I always say, people confuse their selfie with the self. And they're two different things. And for me, when I look at peak living, it's about how do I look at the best in modern science and technology, but also bring in the best in wisdom traditions so we can bring the both together. And in that is the answer, right? Because yes, we need to learn from the past, we need to learn from the wisdom, but you need to adopt modern science and technology, right? That's the essence of peak living. And that's the reason why we have deployed the Mortal Chamber, is to really create an experience. Because one of the things people always tell me, I can't meditate. How do I meditate and all that? I said, great, it's tough. Because when you think of meditation, people literally think of this, when you think of meditation, you think about this yogi sitting and cross-legged, chanting Om, right? That is so far from meditation, right?
Agreed.
Meditation is that which you feel you're in a state of flow. You feel selfless, timeless, effortless, and richness of experience, flow state. You know, listen to your piece of music. You're even doing some work. You kind of lose yourself gardening. That is meditative. So now today we can use technology to induce and be in the states of brain entrainment, right? And I was in Ibiza in a big club, and I was watching Carl Cox perform at the Universe nightclub, right? It was meditative, because I saw almost thousands of people in sync with the music. And that's the kind of flow state we want to bring in. And maybe we can use technology to assist.
It's interesting you say that, because I want to give you an example that I don't know if I can take credit for it, because I think I read it somewhere, but I can't remember where I read it. But I tell people that I try to live my life, or I'm trying to live my life in my journey, where I have these 4 buckets, right? And they're, you know, different sizes, you know, from the smallest one to the largest one, right? And the small bucket is the things that I believe in, right? And then the next bucket is a little bit bigger, is the things that I know. And then the following bucket is the things that I don't know. I know I don't know. And then the much larger bucket is the things I don't know, right? And I see it as a mission for me is to take the 2 outside buckets, the things that I believe in and the things that I don't know, and start moving into the inner buckets, right? And for me, meditation at one point was in the bucket of belief, because the science hadn't caught up with things like, you know, Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn, the telomere effect, which Deepak contributed in the study there, where meditation shows
it is
telomere
part of Chopra
growth.
Foundation's research.
Exactly, right? Dr. Richard Davidson at University of Wisconsin, you know, thousands of studies that show that meditation actually grows your hypothalamus, right? So now we have scientific proof, measurable proof, over and over and over again, repeatable, that meditation is something that is not only useful but essential for human well-being. I no longer have to believe it, because now I can see it. So I can take that and move it into the bucket of the things that I know. I see what you're doing, and you can expand on this, as a mission of using technology to show people what they can do if they felt better. Do you agree?
Yeah, you know, I think Maya Angelou said this, right? People don't remember what you say. People don't remember what you do. People never forget the way you make them feel, right? So when you tell people, you know what, can you just, I said my number one goal is reduce inflammation, right? That's, if you can do one thing we can take away from this, just stress is killing the world. Stress, chronic stress is killing everybody, right? And we are stressed about everything today. If we can spend that time, just a few minutes, just connecting with yourself, that's going to reduce inflammation. So I realized that if I tell people just meditate, be with yourself, it's just hard. It's hard for them to do that. But I can give them an experience where I can entrain their brain, right? Take them from a very active state to alpha states, and maybe get them to relax their body. So this is when using technology like the immortal chamber, right? So the base of it is a zero gravity bed. So you feel relaxed. You tried it out.
Yep, it's
Then
wonderful.
then you have PEMF and PEF, so it helps in kind of reducing your sticky platelets. Then he has vibroacoustics, which is about reducing lymphatic drainage in the body. Then he has red light and infrared for basically skin and then muscle. Then hydrogen for reducing oxidative stress. And then it has sound, right? Entrainment. So now in 25 minutes, you get a glimpse of what is possible. And if you get a glimpse of what is possible, maybe you'll try to do it again. So for me, it's more about giving you that first aha moment, that if you can do that, maybe you'll do it again. And for me, I think that's really been kind of it's a big experiment. When we took meditation online with Deepak almost 2 decades ago, before there was Calm, Headspace, Insight Timer, it is a 21-day meditation. We used to have CDs and DVDs. I used to joke, people used to forget their password, and we had to mail a letter with, this is your password, and please, you reset your password with this password, right? And we have come a long way. And now I think the next evolution is really, how do we get people not to be stressed, right? And for me, it's a very simple thing. My meditation is only 4 questions. It's called the soul profile versus the LinkedIn profile. I can Google everybody's LinkedIn profile, but what's your soul profile? And there are 4 questions. Who am I? Right? Very loaded question. What do I want? What is my purpose? And what am I grateful for? And those 4 questions return you to wholeness. And the who am I question is it's very interesting because when you're born, you're infinite possibilities. Your mom held you in the hand and said, "Here's my prince, Raphael," right? Then you became an engineer. Because what happens, society kind of conditions us to finite possibilities when we are actually infinite possibilities. So when they say you're Poonacha, you're typically running around very happy, you're not wearing clothes and all of that, and somebody says you're a boy, your name is Poonacha, you're Indian, and then you're screwed for the rest of your life. Because you're defending this fictional identity of who you are, right? Because you got to dress this way, be this way. And Krishnamurti, J. Krishnamurti, who was a very famous philosopher, big influence on my life, had a very small book called Truth is a Pathless Land. And he said something which is so beautiful. He says, comparison and conformity lead to conflict. A mind without conflict is a spiritual mind. Think about it. Comparison and conformity lead to conflict. A mind without conflict is a spiritual mind. If we can live life without comparison, my bank balance is so-and-so, my status is so-and-so, I should look so-and-so, or conform, I should dress so-and-so, then it's infinite possibilities, right? That's the reason why most billionaires are suffering with mental health. Have you ever seen somebody who's homeless worried about suicide? Think about it. Why the slums of Mumbai? How come suicide is not high? Because the suicide is very high among the rich. It's because somebody had $100 million and somebody next to them just made $150 million. And that delta really is messing them up because they're constantly worried about where to park the next jet. Right? I think that's a problem, comparison and conformity. And there's very much a social conditioning. We don't reward. I think we ought to create our incentives to be more human, right? And that's what, we still have 10 toes and 10 fingers. I think what happened during the pandemic, I still don't know what the big challenges are. For the first time in human history, we couldn't touch people. We couldn't hug people. Kids grew up met somebody for the first time and then they couldn't, next week they were locked down. I think, having worked through mental health during the pandemic, I just don't know, what the long-term repercussions are. There's something called, I think it's called invisible children. Children who never went back to school, ever, after that. So I think community, intimacy, connection is key.
The title, I'm going to put you in a spot here, a friendly spot.
Okay.
The title of his podcast is 3 Thoughts on, and I just thought of something as you were talking, because you've said now infinite flexibility,
Yeah.
infinite possibilities. Is there a third infinite in your message and the way that you live?
I think from my perspective, I would like to keep a beginner's mind. I try to challenge myself every year to do something which shocks the hell out of me, right? And that's, I don't know, there's another eye, but there could be something there, but I can't think of something right now. But
Like going on a motorcycle in the Himalayas, when you hurt your hip.
yeah, and I'm signing up for BJJ last week, and I'm really like, wow, I'm falling a lot, but it is fun. I think for the people in the crowd from Nestri who talks about the brain, and they can validate this, cognitive reserve is a very important attribute of brain function. I think the number one thing we should build, each one of us, is novelty into our life. Novelty. What is the new thing you can learn? And just build novelty into it. I think that's something which I try to inculcate into my own life, right? Because that gets us to learn, right?
It puts us as that comfortable challenge, right? To challenge ourselves. Let's go back to peak living for a moment. What excites you? What's new that's coming that is, right now you have the Immortal Chamber, which you said I tried. Everybody who hasn't tried it, you should go and try it. It's absolutely phenomenal. Bring your swimsuit.
Yeah, absolutely. The next thing I'm looking at, a partner with a company called Escape, AESCAPE. It's a robotic massager.
Okay.
Right? So one of the things, I always said your body keeps score, keeps stress. And I was talking to Terry about this other day. Like, massage is such a sacred thing, right? You need somebody of relationship. But sometimes you just get out of the gym, you feel tight, you feel stressed. I feel everybody can move better, right? If we can reduce inflammation, if you can connect with yourself, we can be so much more free from disease. So I'm looking at adding for the first time, a robotic massager to the portfolio, right? I'm really excited about it because I feel I love technology, right? For me, I'm a kid who never grew up. I came to this country in '92 to program robots, right? And people looked at me and thought, like, you program robots? Like, you sure? Like, I had to get a job, and I got a job as an AI programmer in fraud management and telecom, because nobody wanted to hire a robotics programmer. Now robots are cool. So I think robotic massage, for me, I'm going to find ways where I can give people a glimpse into how to feel joyful. That's it, right? How to feel joyful in their body. And I think when people have so much pain, people ask me, why did I get into psychedelics? Because when you are in the state of distress, and somebody's had deep trauma, and I work with a lot of veterans, and people have been through sexual abuse and all of that, they just don't believe. They believe the world is just an unkind place. And you want this hope, this glimmer, this sliver, like there is something else. That's why psychedelic assisted psychotherapy gives you a glimpse of maybe there's this other possibility. So I think we got to keep pushing the limits. We are, like I said, infinite possibilities, so we should not get so stuck in our paradigms, right? Even healthcare has to evolve, and not fast enough. And that's why I've started my PhD to really look at public health and public policy, and to really go back and rewrite, even like energy medicine. How do you look at those things? People don't have the ability to tap into some of these cutting-edge frontier technologies.
That's very interesting because, yes, there's definitely a lot of room for growth there. I think, we're making some headways, but I don't think we're making them fast enough given the amount of stress. So, one of the things that you and I have talked about is how ill-equipped, our biology is to deal with all of this, right? And this is one of the things that we talked about as a topic of my book, is how we need to start tapping into the technology. We need to start tapping into each other to be able to survive the amount of pressure for attention, the demand for attention, right? And I know that was one of the things that you worked on. I'd like for you to mention that you used actually AI at one point in this journey as a bot, as people could call if they were feeling depressed and there was a risk of possible suicide. Can you expand on that?
Right. So before I come to that, you said something I want to talk to you about. Actually, your body knows, your breath knows, and in stillness, it speaks to you. Right? Your body knows. Body is infinitely intelligent. Your breath knows. You need the stillness so it can speak to you. Right? So that's the way I would say. That's the reason why you need stillness. We don't glorify silence. This is beautiful. Stillness. We don't know how to be still. And the second part of your question was, sorry, I was trying to think of what you were saying. You were talking about the AI chatbot. Yeah, the chatbot. So during the pandemic, being an engineer, Deepak and you were talking about, he said, let's put a chatbot out there to help gamers out, right? So I called my engineers and we said, let's put a chatbot during the pandemic. We put it out there. We thought maybe we'll have 20,000 people kind of using it. You know, we have a pretty big network, but still, we had 16 million messages, 5 million minutes of chats, conversations, and 4,800 suicidal ideation interventions. And that's when he took it down. He said, we're not equipped to look at suicidal ideation. And that really got me into really looking at, like, how can we help? What can we do in suicidal ideation? Because I was like, 8 billion people on this planet, and this one amazing soul decides that they're nobody to talk to. Every person who's attempted suicide, has at least spoken to 4 people. What happened? Why did nobody respond? So there's an acronym which is used in suicidology. It's called IS Path Warm, right? My accent is I is ideation, S is substance abuse, P is lack of purpose, A is anxiety, T is lack of trust, H is lack of hope, W is withdrawn, A is anger, R is resentment, M is mood change. If you look at these things, you know the person is trending. If I was having a bad day in my village, they would look at me and say, Poonacha, you look like shit. Let's go have a drink. Today, days can go by. If you go back and say, what? Hey, hi, what's up? If you say, actually, it sucks, man. You'll be like, okay, I don't know. Because it's just automatic response, oh, great, awesome. But, sometimes life is just, it sucks. What do you do?
Yeah.
So I really started looking at this word intimacy. And I use it because intimacy is a very powerful word, because it's a difference between solitude and loneliness. If you're intimate with yourself, you're never lonely, right? The challenge today is intimacy. And before what we had religion, right, wrong, otherwise, I don't care. People, and it's very controversial, but faith is an all-time low, right? The Catholic Church gets a lot of rap, but I went to a Jesuit school in India, the best education I ever had. I am who I am because of the amazing Jesuit education system I had. My motto that my school was Fidet Labore, faith and toil. It became the cornerstone of my life. But today, faith is an all-time low. Family structure is broken down. And all of a sudden, this kid in school says something on whatever social platform, and the whole world falls apart, right? I think we need to create intimacy, connection, faith, trust, right? These are the cornerstones of what's being human, right? So in the age of AI, I think it's going to now give us time. If the robot, it's going to do this, right? In 10 years from now, forget about cooking, forget about driving, forget about cleaning, anything which requires active beta frequency processing, AI is going to do it. Then what should we do? We should have more time to be human. But we should start now. Right?
Yeah, you would think.
You would think, yeah. I mean, after the pandemic, I thought, oh my God, we'll be so kind. Human beings will be so loving. People will be so caring. We never want to hurt each other. We just realized there are no walls, no barriers, no boundaries. We're all one. The planet will all kind of is restoring itself. We're right back to war.
Yeah.
And that's what worries me today. What worries me today is medieval minds with modern capacity for warfare. That's what worries me.
Yeah, you and me both. Well, I want to make sure that I leave some time for some questions. I know maybe some of you have any questions. Any questions for Poonacha? We have a wireless mic in here.
Yeah, Caitlin there.
Got that?
Yep.
Hey, well done, gentlemen. That was awesome. I had a fantastic experience at your place, Peak Living. The Immortal felt like a remembering. So I loved when you said that. The 40 minutes in there really felt like a remembering with all of the visceral experiences. And so I was wondering if you could speak into that type of technology, vibration, frequency, the total connection to this feeling of energy moving through me. It was a consciousness expansion. There was a moment in there that felt, and speaking to AI and this moving from Newtonian thinking to quantum thinking, this kind of leap that we have to make with the tools. That is a tool. It was an entire experience that gave me a feeling with this tool. Is this these types of experiences going to help us expand more rapidly? If we can get many humans having that type of experience, do you think this will help us pick up the pace to bring in the more quantum paradigm, to remember that the Newtonian thinking and the way that we kind of compartmentalize things isn't really real, because that was a total visceral unity experience. So can you speak into that from Newtonian to quantum?
I think we are like a very complex being, right? The world is very reductionist. I go to orthopedic specialist, or I go to this specialist, I go to that specialist. I think what we need to do, what I'm doing with AI, I'm doing what you call grand rounds. So I have this agentic AI framework. I have the best in neuroscience, the best in relationships, the best in orthopedics, all of them coming together, look at you as a whole person. So in the immortal chamber, once again, we're stacking, right? We use different technologies to kind of give you this experience of wholeness. And that's really the whole thing. Because we got to remember that which you have dismembered, right? We were very connected. You were in your mother's womb, right? And then every heartbeat, you felt. You felt every emotion. You felt everything. And then we came into this world and we just, all was separation. So one of the things I'm trying to do, because between you and me, you see me visually. So if I couldn't see me, I could hear you. If I couldn't hear you, I could still smell you, taste you, touch you. But if I can do all of that, you still exist, right? What was that fundamental being without which nothing is possible? The world we see is what we call SIFT, sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. We construct our reality. This is a magical lie, right? If my dog was here, it has a canine universe. If there was my kitten here, my dog thinks I'm not Poonacha, I'm something to my doggy. To my cat, I'm something else. So A is not equal to B is not equal to C, A is not equal to C. So who are we at the fundamental core? We're energy, right? We are spiritual beings having a human existence. What is happening, this separation is what I see color. If I didn't see color, I wouldn't be as discriminating based on color. If I couldn't hear, I wouldn't be so discriminating based on accent. Then you know what? So our senses dull us, literally dull us. That's why kids who are on the spectrum or we talk about, they're actually much more civilized than we are. Because they don't use judgment based on color, voice, this, that. So for me, I look at energy as the fundamental source of being. And if I can return you to wholeness, then maybe from there you can do whatever you want, right? So that's a glimpse. That's really what we are trying.
Any other questions for Poonacha before there's one more question over here. Thank you, Juan.
I appreciate you, first of all. My question is, this is for everyone in the room, but mainly you. What is your dream?
You know, every day I get up and the same thing me and Deepak have. How do I reach critical mass for a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world? And that's my intention. Every day when I get up and I finish my meditation, I said that. Then I set an intention for myself. Joyful, energetic body, loving, compassionate heart, reflective and alert mind, and lightness of being. So that's for me to say that I can use this uniform to be of the maximum service to humanity. If I didn't have a joyful, energetic body, get the body fixed first. Loving, compassionate heart, then reflective and alert mind, then lightness of being. So it's almost, that's kind of my dream and the reason for my existence.
How do you find your peace?
You know, for me, in every moment, I don't compare anymore, right? So I've really, over the years, learned, Krishnamurti said, comparison and conformity. I don't compare, because if I compare yesterday to today, then I'm already stressed out. But if I was here for the first time, just landed, I'm like, wow, beautiful. Who are you? So having this sense of infinite possibilities, I think we have forgotten about infinite possibilities. And I think that's something which I kind of remind myself, that even though I'm going through my darkest moment in my life, and I've been through some of them, I follow the ABC principle. First, an attitude of gratitude. At least I've been here so far. B, believe in impermanence. This too shall pass. Even though today is the winter of my life, there is going to be spring and summer. And C, make a conscious choice. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Choose love. That's pretty much it.
What are 3 things you're grateful for?
You know, I'm always grateful for my mother. My mom has been the biggest influence of my life. Because she took a kid who couldn't speak. I couldn't speak. I didn't want to go to school because I had a very bad stutter. And every time I would go and I would stutter. Didn't want to go to school. And one day she told me that, son, your superpower is that none of the kids can keep up with you. So can you slow down for them because they just can't keep up? Can you just slow down? And as I started slowing down, so I could get my words out, right? And today I speak on stage and people don't think that I have a stuttering issue or things like that, but only when I'm really sad or really angry is when it comes out, right? But so my mom has been that influence in my life who's always taught me to dream big, that you have nothing that you cannot do. You always said if your mind can conceive it and your heart can believe it, I know you can do it. So yeah, my mom's my deep gratitude.
Well, everybody, thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
being here. Poonacha, thank you
Thank you,
for
sir.
being here. As always, enlightening. We could have talked for another hour. I have 10 more questions. You're going to have to come back at some point. Thank you all that were online. Again, thank you to Juan Santos and Reese Lynn, Nona Media, and MS2. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.